This week on Influence, I guarantee that you'll be taking home one of those cute doggos by the end of the episode. Greetings, Internet travelers. Welcome back to another week with me, Matt Silverman, here on Influence. It's the show about Internet communities, Internet creativity, and all the things we love to surf on this information superhighway. Thanks for hanging out with me for yet another episode. It's going to be a great one because here's the deal. Well, before we get into it, I just have to cover this. That I told my guest this before we got on. We've had some adventures here at the house the last 2 days as of this recording. My son, who is 8 years old, many of you might be already familiar with him on the internet. He got a palette expander. Oh man, he got a 3D print of his mouth, which is over there. I wish I could get it and show it to you, but like his mouth is like, video viewers will see. It's like it's a horror show in there. So he got a palette expander and came home and then was unable to speak English anymore, no longer able to eat food or swallow, which caused him a lot of distress and discomfort. And then as he was hanging out eating ice cream, chocolate ice cream, you know, he polished that off pretty quick because it's a soft food. And then we were watching some Star Wars shows, he and I. And then, my belly hurts. And I was like, oh, shit. And then just brown substances were spewing out all over the house from a variety of orifices. Sorry to get graphic here, but we cover a lot of dirty stuff on the show on occasion. And right before this interview, which I'm very excited to do, I've been scrubbing carpets and doing laundry and putting various cleansers and cleaners on a lot of things. So he is happily watching The Return of the Jedi right now on an iPad somewhere in my home. And we're going to talk about some pretty heartening, inspiring internet stuff. Now, as everyone listening to this program knows, there's three things that make the internet go, right? You got your pornography, okay? That's the pillar, right? The cornerstone. Then, of course, video games. That's the second part of it. Third part is the cute doggos. That is what we go on the internet to see. And look, you can watch cute doggo videos all day long. They're a dime a dozen. But my guest today has built a really beautiful community, not just about the cuteness of the doggos, but about protecting, adopting, and most importantly, fostering, which is that sort of middle period between we love shelter animals, we want to save them, and they found a good home. Well, in between, there's a step there that the layperson, we're not a pet household, so I don't know much about this. I've been learning about this from her work. There's a step there that is really important, and when you see what she's doing here, I think you'll be as inspired as I am, and as I was learning all about her work. So she shares these inspiring stories on, of course, the Instagrams and the TikToks, as long as we have TikTok for now. Hundreds of thousands of fans. And I think you've got the casual people who just love the cute doggos. You've got the people who are inspired. And then you've got the people who are like, hey, I didn't know about this. Maybe I'm going to foster. Maybe I'm going to adopt. And we're going to talk all about that today. I don't know what else to say. I just want to get into it. Please welcome Isabel Klee, also known by her own doggo on the internet as SimonSits. Isabel, welcome to Influence. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
That was such a nice intro.
Some listeners are probably very familiar with your work, and some listeners listen to every episode and they're like, what's this? Who's this person?
No, I loved it. You also didn't mention the best part is that we have a connection.
We do. Yes. Let's pull back the curtain. Do you want to, I've been rambling. You tell your side of the story, and let's see how the connection forms here.
Well, we actually have two
We
connections.
do.
My best friend, and she was my random roommate via Craigslist, is your cousin.
Right. It wasn't actually, it wasn't like a college situation. It was a
No.
random. See, I love that it was an internet connection as well, because
Yes,
that's obviously
there you
what
go.
we're covering today.
And then another internet connection is my brother was your old coworker. My brother is internet culture writer now at Rolling Stone, but you guys used to. It was at the Daily Dot?
It was at the Daily Dot. Yes, we were colleagues. He has always been a writer reporter, so he was doing his thing. I was managing like audience and social media, so we collaborated on a bunch of projects, but we didn't like, sit next to each other and we were not in the same trenches together. But he
but you
is
were both in the trenches.
A lovely, hilarious guy. I'm so thrilled that he's over at Rolling Stone. And very often I will be clicking around, or I'll see a headline. I'll be like, whoa, what's this? I gotta say, and I click on it. And it's like, oh, Miles. Hey,
yep.
He's writing it. He's anything I'm interested in. I click on something. I'm like, oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah,
he's doing the work.
It's funny. There's like a very small overlap of people who follow me and people who happen to follow him.
Funny.
And then just because like. I always say that my audience is like middle-aged women and his audience is like 40-year-old dudes. And so anyway, there's this very small
that's me.
There's like a very small population of people who follow both of us. But when people make that connection, they're like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like Miles is Simon's uncle.
But again, I just want to reiterate here, and for video viewers, we have at least one, maybe two, multiple dogs in the shot here. You may hear them.
I was going to say that's Simon who's yelling at me right now.
And usually I say, get the kids and the animals out of the room. But for this interview, we want to have the dogs in the shots. But truly, I would not have made the connection unless this random other coincidence, this Craigslist roommate coincidence. We were visiting my cousin Hannah, your best friend, and we're just sitting. She has a beautiful new baby, and we were just having a beautiful time at her apartment. And she's like, "Do you know Miles Klee?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" Yeah. And then one thing led to another. So here we are. I'm thrilled to have you, and so. I always start off interviews like, when you explain your livelihood, your job these days, when someone in a coffee shop, an acquaintance, is like, oh, what do you do for a living? How do you explain it to them?
It's actually funny that you ask me this because so for a long time, or I would say the past 2 years, I would say I am a content creator on the internet. Yep. And I create content about dogs and primarily rescue dogs. But just recently I was talking to my fiance and I said, oh my God, I can say that I'm an author now.
Yes.
Like, that's crazy. Cause my whole career, I've had to like explain it to people and people are like, you do what? And you're right. How are you like, how does that make sense? How do you make money?
Right.
But now I can just be like, oh, I write. And people are gonna be like, oh, okay. Like not ask any questions.
But so this is very fascinating to me because the authorship, which we'll cover, it comes out of the internet work, obviously. Yeah. So like, do you feel like your primary job is an author?
No.
So that's the shortcut of like, I don't want to explain this to you.
Well, it's I hope it's kind of like imposter syndrome. Like I hope that to be my what I'm known for, and that's always what I've wanted to be known for. Currently, I mean, the book has not even come out yet, so it's like even when I say that, people are like, "Oh, where can I buy your book?" I'm like, "Oh, you can't."
Right, exactly. Yeah. But and we'll cover it later. It is fully written and submitted, meaning like you're not currently working on it. It's out. It's done.
I am currently working on it, but it is. I already have a publisher. It's HarperCollins is publishing it. But yes, I'm still currently working on it. So
you are working on it. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say I usually say I'm a content creator, making content about dogs.
Yep. Which that many guests have told me that like that conversation has gotten progressively easier. People were like, I'm a YouTuber. It's like, okay, people understand that people make money from that now.
Yeah. I mean, people get it more certainly, but there's always questions. They're like, what do you mean at like create content about dogs? What kind of dogs? What kind of content are you? Because there's so many different kinds of videos that you could be
Yes.
making on the internet. And people
Yeah.
still don't really like understand it. And they also don't understand how you make money from it. But it's definitely gotten like less strange because I've been working with influencers or creators, not myself being the creator, but I've been
Right.
doing this for almost a decade. So I've had to have that conversation a decade ago, and that was like people could not even comprehend that, you know?
So let's go through a little bit of the timeline here. You said briefly here that you were like, oh, I always wanted to be an author, or that was always your aspiration. So did you go to school for that? Were you always writing when you were young?
Yes.
Yeah.
I went to school for creative writing, and
Same.
I majored in that and English literature, I think it was. I don't know. And then I minored in communications.
Mhm.
And I always wanted to be a writer, but it's like who's actually an author or like a writer, or it's just like not a lot of people can make a career out of it. So
And what does that mean? Is it books? Is it news, journalism,
right.
whatever,
Exactly.
But
And
what were your aspirations? You wanted to write books.
I wanted to write books. Yeah.
Did you want to write fiction, or what were you focused on?
Yeah. I mean, I mostly have written creative nonfiction,
Okay.
but I would love to write fiction one day. But this book that's coming out is creative nonfiction.
Yeah.
It's a memoir.
Mhm.
Kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
I say memoir lightly because it's like just a decade of my life.
Yeah, but it's the decade where it all happened, and it is
Yeah.
a retrospective on that. So yeah, we'll cover that in a bit. Yeah.
Yes.
So English, creative writing, communications, and then you get out into this world. You know, I don't know exactly what age you are, but like housing crisis, pandemic, like there's a lot of shit going down in the world and in New York. As you're starting your career, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I graduated in. The reason why I can't really remember what year I graduated is because I took a year off, and then there was like I think I graduated in 2015.
Okay, yeah.
College.
Yeah.
And my very first job out. So I was a senior in college, and I was in my second semester. I was writing my thesis, and I was just scrolling the internet one day, and I see this Instagram account that I love saying that they're hiring. And it was like a very well-known dog photographer. And I have been obsessed with dogs my entire life, just like my one true love. And I was like, I'm just going to apply for this job. Like, I'm just going to do it. Like, whatever. What do I have to lose? I remember I was like on my way to a class. I just like threw a resume together and sent it out. And I got a first interview. Went to the second round, went to the third round. I think there was
Which is wild, by the way, because like you never get applying to a random like this account was very popular. So like the odds, I guess I'm saying, are not in your favor here.
No, there were. I think he told me that there were like 500 or 600 applicants
easily.
And like applicants who were like in New York. It was like, all these applications, and then you cut it down to the people who could
actually do it.
And
what was it about? Because you were still in school, so it's not like you had specific work experience. What was it about your application that brought you into the interview there?
So I've asked this before. I think that. So he was looking for an assistant, and there were people who applied that were way overqualified, and there were people who applied that were way underqualified. And I think I was just qualified enough. Like I didn't have enough experience.
That makes sense.
Can I pay her? Who can I pay $30,000? Basically.
Yeah. All right. This is making more sense.
And
now, yeah.
I had a ton of experience with dogs. I had a ton of experience with the internet. Like I've always been like kind of an internet. Like I was big on Tumblr, like big on YouTube when it first started, like all that stuff. And then the main thing with there's that. The main thing was that we hung out together and we got along.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to spend so much time together because we would go on these long shoot days. Just tell me if they're barking too much, by the way.
No, it's fine. Hey, this is all part of the show.
There would be these long shoot days where we would just have to be walking around New York for hours and hours and hours. And then, you want to spend this time with somebody that you actually like to hang out with.
Yeah, that you can tell. Now, forgive me if I'm missing the chronology here. Is this the Dogist account? Or
Yes.
is this... Okay. So this, if I'm understanding, is like Humans of New York, but for dogs. Is
Yes.
that an elevator pitch?
That's
okay.
how a lot of people describe it. Yeah.
Okay.
So he is a dog photographer. He hits the streets, started in New York City, but he has, gone all over the world. And he takes photos of dogs and tells their stories, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we would do these long shoot days, and the last interview was exactly that. We went out for like 8 hours, and it was pouring rain, and it was awful, and I was just like soaking wet, and my feet hurt, and that was like the test. Like, can we be in the worst conditions ever and just get along? And can you be like helpful to me and enjoyable to be around? And I passed that test. And we always, like, that first time hanging out, we always said, like, he reminds me so much of my brother, and I reminded him so much of my sister. So we kind of immediately fell into that like brother-sister dynamic of like,
nice.
You hang out with your siblings all the time, and like there's comfortable silences, and you can bicker, and like it's not like there's like a comfortability there. So I think that was really what got me the job, was that final like test,
And then in terms of the job itself, assistance, is it production assistance, or is it more like, hey, coordinate this and go over and get that?
Yeah, it was a lot of like coordinating shoots, like answering emails for brand partnerships, like arranging for that. And then, like walking around, holding equipment. It was just kind of like
everything
general assistant stuff, but it wasn't like a personal assistant. Like I wasn't like doing laundry,
Yeah. But then did you ever, at some point, did you get a camera in your hand, and where you ended up doing and making any of the content, or how did that evolve?
So when I started, it's funny to look back. This is like before like video existed in
totally. So 2015, 2016-ish. Yeah. So, meaning before video was prevalent on social media sites besides YouTube.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So it was just YouTube, and then TikTok didn't exist, and Instagram didn't have video.
Right.
So he was a photographer, and it was just photos of dogs. And for that whole time, I would do like, I actually don't even think Instagram stories existed, now that I'm thinking
stories,
about it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Reels for sure, not.
No, Reels for sure. So I was mostly just doing like behind the scenes stuff. When video was introduced, I kind of pitched, I was like, we should do video content. And, there was all this discussion of like, well, I'm a photographer, and how do we do that? And I was like, I think we should just record what you're doing. Like, I think people would think that was super cool and interesting. And that's what we did. We hooked a mic up and just took videos of him taking photos of dogs, and then put the photos within the video. And it really, I mean, it just like completely catapulted it. So I was never creating the content until video was introduced.
And were you shooting this video with smartphones, iPhones?
Yeah, just my iPhone.
Yeah, this is what we know now, but you were both obviously doing this, is like those platforms were not hungry for documentary, highly produced, lengthy. It was meant to be like, hey, this is really me, and here I am doing my thing, and hey, what's up, everybody? And it's just iPhone, that, and that. So you cracked that code right there and then, and that clearly paid off.
Yeah, it just completely blew up, and people loved it, and that was really my first time like creating the content and like editing it. And I'm not a video editor. I mean, now I kind of am a little bit, like I had to be, but at the time I had never done it. So I was just like, okay, I guess I'm just going to figure this out. And I look back at those like early videos and laugh because they're so awful. But yeah, it was, I mean, it really like resonated with people. And I think just connected people to the content in a way that photos just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long were you there, and when does Simon enter the picture?
So I worked there for 7 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And I adopted Simon probably like 5 years into it.
Okay.
So I started to foster dogs back then.
Okay, right. Oh, I fast forwarded a little too quickly. So you had been fostering a lot
Yeah.
all
Well, a
this
lot
whole
of people
time.
don't know that Simon was a foster fail.
Yeah.
So I was fostering back then. And again, I wasn't really sharing it because I didn't have my own platform. Like I was
Yeah.
just fostering just to foster. And then I saw a photo of Simon. This is how the story goes. I saw a photo of Simon and I was like, that's the cutest dog I've ever seen in my
On
entire
like a
life.
shelter website or on social
On
media?
Instagram.
And was it being shared by the shelter? How did
Yes.
that? Okay.
So they had posted this photo of him and I was like, that's the cutest dog I've ever seen in my life. I messaged them and I was like, can I foster this dog? And they're like, oh, he already has a foster. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, we can ask his foster if you can like take over, but like she might say no. And I was like, okay. So I reached out to her and she was like, she actually worked at Sleep No More. Did you ever do Sleep No More?
No, but I'm vaguely familiar. For non-New York people, maybe you could
Sleep No
explain
More
that.
is this like crazy interactive like theater experience, and it's basically like this old. It just shut down, I think, like a year ago.
Okay.
But it's like this old hotel and it's like 7 stories and there's like all these actors and it's like hours long and like you have to follow the actors or anyway it's like this crazy experience.
Okay.
And so Simon's foster worked at Sleep No More, which is like crazy hours. Like she was gone all day, coming home at like 2 a.m. She had this little tiny puppy and she's like, please take this dog.
What was I thinking?
She's like, he's crazy. And I was like, I will take him. And the rest is history. I took him to foster and like 5 days in, I was like, I'm keeping this dog.
Okay. So backing up just a smidge again, explain the fostering process. What is required of you? What do these dogs need from this sort of temporary home?
So a foster is like a soft place for a dog to land. It is essentially the middleman between a shelter and a forever home. Yeah. You get a dog from a shelter or a rescue organization will pull a dog from a shelter and you essentially take care of this dog until they get adopted. Yeah. So fostering, I think, is great for exactly the position that I was in at the time, which is like a broke 24-year-old because they pay for everything. Like you don't have to pay for any of the dog's medical expenses. They pay for the food. Every organization is different. Like I've heard some where you do have to pay for the food, but most take care of all of the expenses. So it's just like at the time a very smart financial decision for me until I then went and adopted the dog.
And the goal there seems somewhat apparent, but truly I am ignorant about all of it. Like it's obviously better for a dog to be living with a person or a family than in a shelter.
Yes.
And so I think I imagine one part of it is like, hey, this dog will have a better emotional life leading up to the adoption. But then additionally, some of these dogs are really, they have been abused or malnourished or whatever. And so the fostering process is about physical healing as well. Is this right? Okay.
So shelters are obviously amazing. They're doing amazing work, but shelters are very stressful. Like even as a human, you go into a shelter and it's like dogs are barking, the lights are fluorescent, it smells like bleach and like dog shit. And like, it's just like, it's super stressful. And they're doing that's not any fault to the shelter staff. They're doing the best they can.
The best they can. Yeah.
But it's like it takes a big toll emotionally and physically on the dogs that are there, especially the dogs that are long stays.
Right.
So there's actually a crazy statistic that a dog who goes into a foster home is 14 times more likely to get adopted. They are just more adoptable. They're happier. They are able to decompress. You're able to see like a dog's true nature when they are in a foster home versus a shelter.
Right. Totally. Totally. Okay. So then so you and other fosters are taking them from an emotionally heightened, distressed place
Yep.
and bringing them to their more, their natural state, let's call it, whatever you want to say. How do you do that? How long does it take? Because when you bring them from a shelter cage to another alien place that they don't know with a person they've never smelled before, like that seems stressful for you and the dog.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people like a comment that I get all the time is somebody saying, "I could never do what you do." But like the reality of it is that it's really not that difficult. I tell people that the only thing that these dogs need is time and patience and love. Like, right. For example, I had a dog named Twinkle, which is a hilarious name because he was rated the worst. He had the highest behavioral rating at the municipal shelter of New York City. And essentially they sent out an email saying this dog can't be shown to the public. He's like super aggressive and he tries to bite everybody. And he was a Chihuahua, so it wasn't like dangerous, but he was like mean, he was like, you couldn't even touch him and he would like attack. Yeah. And I was like, I'll take him.
But this is what, and I learned, I think I saw him on one of your reels. And this is the big lesson I learned from your advocacy is that you think that some dogs are not adoptable.
Yes.
Or that you also feel that you personally are not capable of adopting a difficult animal. You're like, oh, I'll adopt a medium or an easy guy,
And Twinkle was such a great example of that because he was so terrified. I mean, he came from an awful situation. He was found in like an apartment that was said to be in like deplorable conditions with his owner was dead. There was multiple dead dogs. Like,
oh, I did see this. Yeah.
Traumatic
on your story. Yeah.
So like, understandably, he's like freaked out. Yeah. So he was like, terrified in the shelter situation. So we bring him home. And for the first few days, I just leave him in his pen and I feed him slices of ham. That is all I did for like 3 days.
Sounds great.
And I put a pee pad in. He could go to the bathroom. I would change the pee pad out, give him food, just give him slices of ham and then leave him alone. And on day 3, he came out of the pen. He wanted to sit on my lap. His body had regulated. He was like this incredible dog. And of course, I still keep in contact with his new owners, and they say they love him so much. They're like, he's so funny. We love him. That he's still a little spicy, of course. Like dogs don't just like magically get perfect overnight. But like, it was just such a great example of like this dog. Everyone was terrified of this dog. And then he turns out to be like the sweetest, funniest little guy. And that was just like 3 days of feeding him ham and leaving him alone.
That your content about him blew me away because like you said, anyone who would have walked into the shelter to be like, which one should I pick? Would never have picked him.
Never.
But after 3 days of ham, we're good to go. This is a little bit like, I don't know, biologic, scientific or whatever, but like if a human was in a situation where they were stuck in a place with dead bodies, that trauma would not be solved with 3 days of ham,
No.
So like, what's the trauma mental health situation of a dog in terms of recovery?
I mean, I'm not a behaviorist, obviously, right. But I am constantly amazed at how resilient dogs are. They are so adaptable and they're so resilient. And that's why I laugh when somebody sees a video of mine and they say, you have to adopt this dog. He loves you and he'll never recover if he gets adopted. And I'm like, You should see him with like the mailman. Like these dogs love every person that they meet, and like they just want love and they just want to be accepted, and like they don't. This is going to sound awful because of course dogs get bonded to people and of course dogs love people, but like
Right.
even my dog, who loves me more than anything in the world, if something happened to me and he had to go to another loving home, he would be fine.
Yes.
And that is what people have trouble thinking of because they try to assign human emotions to dogs, and that's just not the case.
I'm so glad you are saying this because both can be true.
Yeah.
You can have a beautiful bond with an animal,
Of
and
course.
also they're real dumb and they'll just go wherever the ham is, you know.
They want the ham, they want the love, they want the food, they just want to play fetch in the backyard. Like they're so simple. And I think that's what people need to understand is that like dogs are so they can bounce back way easier than humans can.
Okay. Yep. So before we get into the content that you make, that you've made over the course of, you know, the accounts and what you're doing today, we have to then arrive at Simon. So you're fostering. How many dogs roughly did you foster before Simon?
Not that many. I think like 5.
Okay. And what's the period? Is it a couple weeks? Is it a month?
It depends. I've had dogs for like literally 3 days, and then I've had dogs for 2 months.
Yeah.
I haven't had a dog longer than 2 months, just because I think of my platform. People, you know, there are people who have had foster dogs for 2 years, but I think because of my platform, dogs, there are just more eyes on them. There's a lot of people who are interested in them, and the people or the dogs that I've had for longer are not because people don't want them. It's they're on medical hold, or like Caesar, my current foster dog, is on medical hold right now. He has a laundry list of people who are like wanting to adopt him, but I'm like, not yet.
Ooh, I want to know about the system, the lottery that takes place to you know, for each dog, but we'll get to that. So 5-ish dogs, probably a year or so, a couple of years of fostering, and
probably
then
a year.
You see Simon and you're like, I need to foster this dog. And then obviously the Sleep No More lady is like, please, I can't do this. Simon is in your lap.
Yes.
And then what happens? Where does it go?
So I end up adopting him, sign the papers, and
wait, how long had you wait, you set out? No, he was a foster fail.
He was a foster, yeah.
So you started, how long were you fostering before you were like, he's mine?
I think I kind of knew from the beginning that I was like, there was an element of it that I was like, I just love this dog so much. But I think it was like 4 days before I was really like, I'm going to, maybe 5 days, I'm really going to keep this dog. I was actually on a work trip up in Vermont, and I kind of like decided one night, we were like falling asleep, and I was like thinking about, because same with Simon, he had a laundry list of people who wanted to adopt him, and I kept imagining him going to a different family, and I'm like, that makes me really sad, and I don't want to do that. So the next day I drove to a pet store and got a little tag that said Simon, and that was that. And I ended up adopting him, and then at the time I was still working at the Dogist, and we decided to he took a really cute photo of Simon because he was like literally the cutest puppy that has ever existed. And I was like, I'm just going to make an Instagram for him because I've taken so many photos of him, like, you know, whatever.
Okay.
He posted the photo, tagged Simon. Overnight, he got, I think, 30,000 followers.
This is on Instagram.
On Instagram.
And the Dogist at the time / now, like what are we talking in terms of scale and reach? Millions?
I probably a little less than 2 million he had followers.
All right, so 2 million followers on one particular platform. You create the account just like for funsies, and then he tags it.
Yep.
And then SimonSits, your account, has 30K overnight.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And I remember sitting at a bar that night, and I was like celebrating Simon's adoption, and I just like opened my phone. I was like, holy shit. Like this is just like, And that was in like the heyday of Instagram, where it
Yeah,
was
for
like
sure.
the Wild West, and like
Mhm.
just things could just, it doesn't really happen like that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like TikTok it does a little bit, but
Mhm.
Instagram, no. And so I was just like watching it roll in. I was like, this is crazy. Cause like, again, I had never really like, this was pre-video still.
Yeah.
I had never
Okay.
really been a content creator. And now I had to be, kind of. I was like pushed into it. And that's how SimonSits was born.
Great. Yeah, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Backing up a smidge again, when you fell in love with him and you were like, I have to adopt him, was there any calculus that was like, will having a dog affect how I can foster? You know what I mean? Like, did you feel like it would prevent you from fostering certain dogs?
I don't even think I was thinking about that.
Mm.
I think I knew that I would have to take a break, but I think I was like, oh, I'll be able to foster. I don't think I thought about the implications of it.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until Simon had his like big health scare 2 months after adopting him that I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
You can't foster.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what was the health scare? Because I'm eager, because obviously you get back into fostering,
Yes.
and that becomes part of the whole picture.
Yeah.
So all right. So you're focusing on Simon because he's new and he is a puppy at this point.
Yeah. He was only 4 months old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the health issue?
So I wake up one night to the sound of like thrashing, and at the time, Simon still likes to sleep under like beds and couches and things like that. He likes to like make a little den. He was sleeping under my bed, and I realize that he's sleeping under the bed and he's thrashing and hitting the bed and the floor.
Oy.
And I am like trying to get him out, but he's like pretty far underneath. And I eventually pull him out, and he's like completely lifeless, and he's covered in shit. And I am just like, what is happening? Like, this is,
Oh my God.
I had no idea what was going on. So
he's like 5 months
he's
old,
6
6 months
months.
old, 6 months old.
Well,
Okay.
5 or 6 months. Yeah. Cause we didn't know exactly.
Yeah.
Eventually I somehow like take out my phone and Google the nearest emergency vet hospital. Have to take it like 40-minute Uber. Again, I have no money. I'm like broke. I don't know why I adopted a dog, but I did. I get there, and it turns out that he had a grand mal seizure. And especially when a dog is young, but at any time they can be deadly if they go on for too long because their brains can overheat. So he gets dropped off. He ends up having like 3 more cluster seizures, and
Wow.
we didn't know if he was going to make it. He ends up pulling through, but it becomes clear that he has idiopathic epilepsy. Dogs can have seizures for any number of reasons, but when a dog is that young, it's almost always epilepsy because it's not really going to be a brain tumor. And there's like all these other things that can come with like older age and seizures, but he has epilepsy. So now I have this 6-month-old puppy that has epilepsy.
And this is a genetic condition, meaning like there's nothing that happened to him. This would have materialized because of his genes, no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. So now again, can't overstate how broke I am. I have this 6-month-old puppy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have to spend $600 a month on his medication," and I'm like, "Great." Wow. So it's just like, it's, I think I was like 25, and it was just like debilitating. It was like, it took all of my time because he had to take in the beginning, he had to take medication like 6 times a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he's still currently on 10. He takes 10 pills a day, but we've gotten it to a point where he only takes it twice a day. But at the time it was like, you're still figuring it out. You need to keep him medicated. Like, so I like couldn't have a social life. I was just like, ran dry of funds, and it was just like, what did I get myself into?
Yikes. Wow. I didn't know any part of this story. This is wild. Okay.
Yeah. So I stopped fostering for like 4 years.
Okay.
It was not intended to be that long, but I just couldn't
Yeah.
emotionally handle caring for this special needs dog and
Right.
caring for another dog who needed God knows what.
So just to put all the pieces in focus, you are still working full time
Mm-hmm.
at the Dogist or
Yes,
elsewhere? Yes.
at
Okay.
the Dogist.
So Dogist, no more fostering, but a lot of medical and financial attention on Simon. But he's got 30K followers. Where does the content for him for the Instagram start to happen? Is it during this time or is it after?
No, it's during this time. So I start posting photos, and it's kind of more just like a hobby at this point. Like I have a good following, but I'm not really doing I'm still working full time. My attention was definitely on my job and creating
Yeah.
content there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would say when I really started to create content and like put more thought behind it was during the pandemic, when
Right.
there wasn't anything else to do. And I was still working to some degree, but I wasn't, going out on photo shoots 3 times a week, all day, every day, and putting all of
Yeah.
my attention towards creating that content, because we couldn't. So that was when I really kind of turned my focus to Simon and working on growing that account.
Mm-hmm. I just gonna do a quick shout out to listeners here, because I feel like many guests recently and over the course of this show have been like, well, I was doing this and then this happened and then the pandemic, and
It
that's
changed everything.
when it changed everything. And so just like it's 2020, the pandemic is like the most horrible time in modern history, but also so much newness and
Yeah.
creativity, and businesses and things, many businesses closed and many people
Yeah.
had very difficult times. Obviously, many people died. But also 2020 is like this starting point for new internet creators.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I have someone on, I feel like they're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's obvious, but I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
this pattern. Continue, please.
Yeah, I just feel like, one, there was nothing else to do. So it's like, what, I might as well try to start baking sourdough bread and try to start planting a garden and like take videos on my phone and, start a new hobby. So it was like we were just trying to fill our time. And but again, it was not, I would say that was when I really started like focusing on Simon's account, but that is not when Simon's account blew up. It wasn't until I got let go from my job.
Okay.
That is when everything truly changed for me.
So what are you posting? So you have 30K, maybe that's growing a little bit. But you're just posting like, oh, cute photo of Simon.
Yeah,
Here
it
he
wasn't
is.
like, it was like cute photos of Simon, kind of like question prompts, like engagement prompts, like, oh, how many times a day do you walk your dog? Like, I don't know. It's like just like silly stuff. I would post about his health, like updates about that, because people just loved Simon. They're just like wanting to see photos of him.
That's what I'm wondering. People are subscribed to his story and his life. It's not just like a cute photo scroll. Like they're invested in him.
Yes, totally. And I think there was some element of it where it was like, oh, I work at this place that a lot of people like, and I was like part of that story, and Simon was kind of part of that story too, because he would go
How visible are you in this early content? Is it you and Simon together? Are you like vlogging, talking?
Yeah,
okay.
I wasn't vlogging, but it was definitely us together. It was definitely like, I was a public face on the Dogist, and then it was kind of like, oh, how can we follow her and her dog?
Great.
And
okay.
So it was like photos of us together, cute videos of him. But again, there wasn't like substance to it, I would say.
Sure.
And then a few years later, I end up getting let go from that job that I was at for 7 years. And I would say that was like the scariest moment of my life, but also the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Without a doubt. And was this pandemic related, meaning, hey, the business isn't what it used to be and we got to make some cuts? Or
I'm sure it was related. But yeah, I can't speak to the exact reasoning, but
sure.
it was surprising to me. I was not expecting it. But I say this now because I think a lot of people go through this where they're let go from a job and it's like completely devastating.
Yes.
I don't think I ever would have left that job on my own.
Right.
And I had to be pushed out, whatever the way was. And it ended up being incredible for me creatively, financially, personally. So at the time it was awful, but I can confidently say that was like, I needed that push. I would have like stood behind somebody else's business for however long I could have been
safer.
There.
It's just safer to do that. Yeah, I love that. It's great perspective and advice, but then the other side of the coin, which you won't say about yourself necessarily, but like when that devastation happens, you must also grab it and make yourself push yourself through it and start the new thing, because that's incredibly hard because you are devastated by the loss there. So.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was kind of like when I was working at that old job, anytime I would tell somebody where I worked, they would be like, oh my God, that's a dream job. And it really was for me because I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was just so cool. It was like telling the story of dogs. It wasn't a normal like desk job. I did have to do some things at my desk, obviously, but it was like, it was so interesting and just so cool. And I got to meet so many cool people. And I would say when I worked there, like, I don't know if this doesn't work out, I don't know what I'm going to do. Cause I can't imagine myself at a corporate job. I just can't imagine like what I would do. To me, I was like, I feel like I don't have any like actual like transferable skills, which is not true. But at the time I was like, I don't know how to like be in a team meeting. Like, I don't know how to like do these things. So then when I was let go, that motivated me. I was like, I can't get a corporate job. I can't sit at a desk. I can't. So I just have to figure it out. Like, I got to figure it out. And that was like my main motivator of like, it was like, you know, I got to fly or I'm going to fall. So that was what I did because I had to.
I love everything about your story and I want to keep going full steam ahead. And I haven't played clips of Isabel's work yet because we have not fully arrived at what you're doing now.
Yes.
You know, so you're let go and you're devastated, but you have this drive, this fire to then make the next thing. So do you start fostering again? Or do you make the content first? How does the modern SimonSits start to materialize?
So I got let go, and like 2 weeks later, I was already going to move. So it was like it all happened within a week. I was let go, and then I was like, gotta move out of my apartment. And I already had an apartment lined up, thankfully. So my now fiance and I, boyfriend at the time, moved in together. And our apartment has like a huge backyard, which I've never had in New York before. I've lived here almost 12 years. So at first it was just this like new chapter of like, oh, you know, follow me to try and launch my freelance career. And I talked a lot about Simon and I talked a lot about my finances. And at the time I was doing a lot of freelancing for dog brands. So Adopt a Pet and Kinship. I'm trying to think now. I'm like, what kind of I did work? A lot of work for Boris and Horton, which is a dog-friendly cafe in New York City. So it was like all these dog brands started reaching out to me. I started reaching out to dog brands, Native Pet. So
and were you doing like social media strategy or like content for them?
I was making content for them. Yeah. So for Boris and Horton, I would go in like once a week and just like take a ton of videos and then create videos for them. And
that's great.
So I was doing that. And so my TikTok and Instagram was kind of like, you know, follow me, to be a freelance content creator for dog brands. And that was like, and that kind of like people were interested in that. That was interesting. And that was exciting. And I kind of saw like people had a response to it. Mm-hmm. Then one day we have this big backyard. We have this dog friendly apartment. And I will say my landlord, I think, is the only like truly dog friendly landlord in New York City. She loves dogs. She has 3 Cocker Spaniels. She lives in LA, but she'll occasionally like forget and like order dog food to this apartment. She'll be like, just keep it. Like, she's just like the best. So I just like had this situation. I was on vacation in like August. So we moved April 1st. Mm-hmm. In August, we're on vacation and I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see this rescue saying like, we need this dog's foster just backed out. We need a foster for this dog. And I was like, I showed it to my boyfriend. I was like, should we just do it? And he's like, sure, let's just do it. So the day we get back, we go and pick up this dog. And I laugh now because it is, if you know dog breeds, you will also laugh at this.
Okay.
It is like a cattle dog puppy. Cattle dogs are insane. They're like working dogs. They're super smart. So much energy. They're like border collies or like Australian shepherds. They're just like a husky,
that's what I'm picturing. Sure.
Just like really intense. And it's like a really young dog. So we bring this dog home and he's as sweet as can be, but he's like fucking insane. Yeah. And
he's like, I got to be out in the field where there's sheep
he's like,
to
has
wrangle
to be like
or something.
herding sheep or
something. Yeah.
But his name was Ken too, which is my dad's name. And
yeah, I have a very soft spot for like, this is my dog, Roger.
Yeah,
like just
Kevin.
these like Kevin, like human male names for dogs is.
Yeah, I think they were trying to go for like a Barbie and Ken moment, but like I was like, no, that's my dad. That's my dad's name. So anyway, so we pick up this dog. I like document the whole thing, and it just blows up.
Wow!
And I was
that's
like,
the moment.
Interesting. Like this is interesting.
And you say documenting like, okay, he's here. This is what.
It was like us
meeting him.
It was like us sweaty on the subway going to get him, us picking him up on the transport van, us bringing him back home, us like literally every single thing, us introducing him to Simon, and people just loved it. They're like, I can't remember now, but it was like a big response, and I got a lot of followers from that series, and I was like, okay, we're onto something. And also like, I think it was just eye-opening to me because I've always loved fostering, but I was always hesitant with Simon, and Simon was so good at it. He was he loved it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like really something that we could do. And the backyard, and it was just like everything aligned. And
yeah, for sure.
And that was kind of the first moment where I was like, oh, we're onto something here.
Wow. Okay. That is really magical.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've finally arrived at what the account is about now.
Yes.
I do want to play some clips of Isabel's work here so that listeners can hear and video viewers, if you want to see some cute dogs, of course, follow SimonSits on Instagram or TikTok, but or hop over to the video version and check them out right here.
Hi, my name is Isabel, and if you've seen me on here, it's probably because of my foster dogs. I foster adoptable dogs in New York City and create content to not only get them adopted, but also teach people about the importance and joys of fostering. I've worked with dogs for almost a decade, and helping to educate people on the ethics of dog ownership and rescue while also keeping an open, gentle heart towards humans is something I'm extremely passionate about. After all, the dog crisis is a systematic issue, and being kind to each other is the only way through. My foster dog is almost 2 weeks post-op. He got a major surgery called a femoral head operation. When he came to us, he was not able to put any weight on his back leg, and you can see in this clip here that he is starting to be able to put more weight on it. Because he is recovering so wonderfully, we are going to take him on his first walk today. I bought this sling, so we are going to start small. We're going to walk around the block. The sling makes sure that he's not putting too much weight on his injured leg. So let's go take Caesar on his first walk. And this just goes under his belly. Let's go. Come on. I'm doing something kind of crazy again. Muddy Paws reached out about a dog who was reportedly found in absolutely deplorable conditions. Unclear the exact details of the situation, but it seems like he was either abandoned or his owner passed away. But either way, the apartment he was found in was disgusting. He was found with multiple dogs and a number of dogs who were unfortunately deceased. All by way of saying this dog has been through a lot. He's coming to Muddy Paws from the ACC, and at the ACC, I believe they rank their behavior on a scale of 1 to 4. 1 is the easiest to manage, 4 is the most difficult to manage, and then there are dogs called New Hope only dogs, which are dogs that are not quite suitable for the public, meaning they can only go to New Hope partners like Muddy Paws. This dog is a New Hope only dog. Just got the call that our foster dog is almost here. His name is Twinkle. He is 7 pounds. If you didn't watch my previous video, go watch it and I tell his whole backstory. I set up his crate situation a little bit differently, and I'm gonna show it to you. I wanted him to be able to have his own space if he needed it, but I'm just so excited to meet this dog. Let's go get our boy. Here is the final setup. We have the bed for him to sleep in, the pee pad so he doesn't have to leave his crate, and we set up the crate in the bedroom this time so that we can close the doors if he needs to like truly be alone during the day. The way the dogs can be separated if they need to be, and he gets his own little bedroom. He's so cute. We'll go to your new home. He's a good boy. So usually we will take Simon for a walk with our new foster dog. This time we are just gonna put him straight in the crate and let him decompress. What do you think? He sticks, huh? And I saw her eyes and I just saw how shut down she was. She was so gentle and just so sad. If I could get her out of the shelter environment, she would thrive. Yeah. Hi, baby. The first thing I did was clean her up. Good girl. As soon as she got home, she knew that she could finally rest.
Okay, so you're fostering now. Ken is the first return to fostering, but it's really clicking for, your family. Oh, by the way, your boyfriend's now fiance, were you all together during the pandemic, or was was he a dog person, or did you turn him into a dog person? You know what I mean?
So we actually met during the pandemic. We have a pandemic romance. We met in December of 2020. Yes. Okay. So we've known each other for a little over 4 years.
But you were. I asked that because I think about people who are like, well, I'm young and single, and I'm in a 1-bedroom or a studio apartment alone.
Yeah.
For 6 months or for 2 years or however long it was.
Well,
I just can't. I feel terrible for anyone.
Well,
in that
it was
situation.
Extremely daunting at the time, but I lived in Bushwick, and Jacob is my fiance's name, but we always joke because I lived with my best friend at the time, and we were on dating apps. Of course, we're 2 single ladies, and. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were not alone.
Yes, I was not alone.
Friend. Okay, good.
And I set my dating app. You could set your distance, and nobody could get on the subway. So I had to set my distance to half of a mile. I think that was the shortest you could do. Yeah. And then Jacob, unbeknownst to me, is 4 blocks away from me doing the exact same thing, setting his distance to half of a mile. So we always say that our relationship was just one of convenience, because we were like, oh, we just need and also you couldn't date around. So you had to find one person and be like, I'm going to make out with this one person.
We're going to isolate for 2 weeks.
And
then we will meet to make out, and then we will test, and then we will make out again.
Yes. Yeah. So you could only make out with one person. You can't make out with multiple people. So it was a relationship of convenience. We're like, oh, you live 4 blocks away, and you're cute. And then we just accidentally fell in love.
It's beautiful. And did he own a dog, or did he come from a dog family?
He did come from a dog family. His mom has 3 enormous rescue dogs, literally huge. And she is obsessed with dogs. He loves dogs, but has never been a crazy dog person. And actually, I don't think he would have dated me if it hadn't been the pandemic, because he was very against dating somebody with a dog.
Oh,
because it does complicate things. It's like,
for sure.
We can't just go on a vacation. We can't be spontaneous. We have to be home by this time. And like he would only, it ended up being fine because we live so close, but it was like he would have to stay at my apartment for most of it. It just like made things complicated. But again, we didn't have a lot of options. So it was like, I think that would have been a deal breaker for him, not because he doesn't love dogs, but just because like dating somebody with a dog is complicated. So he's always loved dogs, but not, I've definitely converted him to be like insane about it.
There is a parallel dimension where your life is so different.
Yeah.
When the pandemic didn't happen.
Totally.
And you could say that about everyone, but this story in particular. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got Ken, you foster him, and then you get in the groove where you're fostering you're back to fostering, and Simon's into it. And you and Jacob are doing this, and that becomes the focus of the account, right? And that's where the growth happens.
Yeah. And that, I was stuck at like 80,000 followers on Instagram for years, like just didn't grow at all. And then last year, I remember right before Christmas, so almost exactly a year ago, I hit 100,000 followers. And I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like I just hit 100,000 followers. And a year later, I'm almost hitting 300,000 followers. Yeah. So it's been fast. I know
slow and then fast.
Very slow.
Yeah.
And then very fast. Yeah. And it was, I think it was all because of fostering.
It's a fostering. And it's also that it's not just like, oh, I'm fostering a dog, he's cute. It's like you're telling the story. You're talking about rehabilitation.
Yeah.
We are meeting the dogs and getting to know their personalities and how they fit into like your family. And that is next level when it comes to pet accounts,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because to me, I'm just sharing what's happening. But It is interesting to talk to people who can like articulate what I'm doing that's different. You know what I mean? It's like when you're in it, you don't really like see it.
Sure.
But I do think showing the highs and the lows and telling the story and showing the dog's personalities. I think there are a lot of dog accounts and a lot can get lost, but it's interesting to talk to people who are like, here's what I take away from it. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting.
Well, but also the internet is today, and maybe for all time, has been about like, what is unique about you?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you unique? And why am I subscribed to you rather than the 8,000 other people doing dog content?
Sure.
And everyone and their mother has a dog, but only a few people foster animals the way you do, and I'm sure there's many thousands of millions of people but like proportionally,
sure,
it's different and it's unique, and you are a great storyteller. Like you have the chops to do so all that stuff combined is what is obviously working here for you.
Yeah. And I think I hope that I have inspired people to foster themselves, because my goal is always like, I hope that I'm showing that it's like really fun and not that difficult. Like anyone can do it kind of. Because I think people have this idea of like letting a shelter dog into their home and it's like, it's going to be crazy and it's going to be so chaotic, but like all they do is sleep all day. And like occasionally they want to walk, and it's just like a very lovely experience. And so I think that's what I hope I'm showing to people, is that like it really is a pleasant experience. It's not all bad. I mean, there is some accidents and gross stuff, but
of course. Okay, well, you're getting at my next line of questioning, like I'm interrogating you, but we must take a break. But before we take a break, I must quiz you with our court-mandated trivia segment. It's a multiple choice question.
Oh, God.
I'm going to try to stump you. Are you prepared?
I'm nervous, but I am prepared.
Okay. The stakes, we always have to set out the stakes. If you get this right, I will buy Simon a new toy for every week in 2025. Happy New Year, by the way.
I don't know where I will put it, but okay.
If you get this wrong, you need to foster my 2 children for a month. and then send them back to us, and they must be like completely obedient.
With the norovirus or without?
No, they must be cleansed by the time they return to the house.
So I have to deal with the chocolate vomit.
The chocolate vomit, yeah. It's not all glamorous, but they're very cute, I will say.
I do love kids, so.
Great. Okay. Here is today's question. We're talking about the special bond between dogs and humans. Today's trivia shows us that it is no accident that humans and dogs are bonded. It is, of course, evolution. My favorite, I don't know, I wouldn't call it fact, but my favorite idea about dogs that I always love to talk about is that wolves, according to the latest science, wolves domesticated themselves by eating human trash. They would just be like, "Hey, this is easier than hunting. Hey, what are these guys doing?" You seemed alarmed at that. Do you agree?
I have heard that wolves have domesticated themselves. I have not heard the trash thing. I was gonna say that I've heard that they domesticated themselves because they realized that they would get food by being friendly.
Yeah, right. I think that's definitely part of that. Yeah,
I'm sure. But I hadn't heard the trash thing. That's very funny.
I think it's like human settlements. As humans were less nomadic and started to like set down roots, they were like, I got all these banana peels and apple cores and shit all over the place, and the wolves were like, that's fucking easy. It's great over here. We gotta check these humans out. And so
that's amazing. Well, Simon was a street dog, and I can definitely attest that he loves trash.
Yes, I don't think I even asked about his back story before he was fostered.
He was a street dog in Korea.
Korea? Oh yeah. Wow. I mean, this is how shelter animals move around and find their final homes is a wild story.
I always say he's more well-traveled than I am, so he's gone further than I have in the world. That's
hilarious. So, dogs as we know them today are basically just adorable trash vacuums, as I know you can attest. But even after domestication, humans had a bias toward the cutest dogs, not unsurprisingly, which favored certain traits, leading to genetic differences between dogs and wolves. So basically, our preference for the cute ones has evolved the domesticated dogs even more toward the cute.
That's
cute
so
factor
funny.
As we've gone over the last, let's say, 10,000 years since humans.
However,
have been,
I would like to see a not cute wolf.
Fair point.
You know what I mean? Like, what is a cute wolf versus a not cute wolf? I feel like they're all cute.
Look, we're not dog people here. We're not pet people. Look, we're getting away from trivia, but talking to you and learning about your work, my son, who is hopefully not vomiting in the next room, loves dogs. Like, he is obsessed.
Oh, you're going to have to get a dog.
He lives in a home where we will never we can never adopt a dog. However, this idea of bringing a dog in temporarily, but then, I want to get to this because sending the dog away is one thing. It's hard for adults, but like, I do worry it would be more challenging for kids. We'll talk about that. Anyway, according to recent research in the UK, that's the United Kingdom, and the US, the United States, what specific genetic difference do dogs have but wolves do not, speaking exactly what you were just talking about, that makes them so appealing to humans? Scientists just kind of decoded this. Like,
interesting.
Obviously, dogs and wolves are different, but there's something specific that has affected their evolution over the last 10,000 years.
Okay.
I have three choices. A, dog dander, which is the fluff and debris that comes off their skin and fur, contains similar chemicals to the skin cells of human babies and children, which makes us subconsciously go gaga for the pups. That is choice A.
Okay.
Or is it B? Dogs have evolved special muscles around their eyes, which create the illusion of human-like facial expressions. Speaking of attributing human emotion to dogs, right? We talked about that. Or is it C? Domesticated dogs wag their tails 2.5 times faster than wolves, which generates excitement in humans and in other dogs who see the tail wagging. That is choice C. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to go with B.
Okay.
And I think it could be B or C. A sounds insane to me. I don't think it's A.
One is real, two I made up. So the things that are insane are from right up here, the noggin, okay?
I have heard that dog facial expressions have like evolved over time and things like that. So I am going to go with that.
Isabel goes with B. We're going to find out if she gets a year's worth of dog toys right after this important break. Just like Isabel was saying, it's all about the community. It's all about the love that makes these internet creations possible. And I would like to thank everyone on Patreon who supports this show to make it possible, including the executive producers at the $10 or more level, which include Bowie Barks, William, Duran, and of course, Dominic Kerr. Thank you so much for supporting the show on patreon.com/influencepod. Even if you're not able to support financially, you can subscribe to the show and get it in your inbox every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, because I do like to share updates about upcoming guests and what's popping over here. For now, we got to get back to the trivia. Let's see if Isabel got the question correct. We're back with Isabel Klee, also known as SimonSits, on all the social medias, and she is a dog fosterer and adopter. Foster failure, more like it.
Foster failure.
That's such a... Well, look, you've been on the Today Show, and they were like, what happened? And you're like, oh, I failed at fostering. They're like, what? And then you're like, that's when you adopt the dog.
I know.
And
I thought that everyone knew what that was, and like so many people are like, I've never heard of that before, so they're like, that sounds really negative. I was like,
it sounds like you sent him back to the shelter. You're like, this was too much, fail, go back, I can't do it.
So I had to explain. I was glad that they asked that, because I'm like, people are gonna think I'm awful.
Yeah. It was a great interview. It was a good time. We are back to figure out if Isabel got the evolutionary question correct. What is a genetic difference that's relatively new, evolutionarily speaking, between dogs and wolves that makes them so damn cute? A, dog dander and fluff has baby chemicals in it that makes us love them more. That was A. B, that domesticated dogs have extra muscles around their eyes that make them, do human facial expressions. That's what Isabel chose. Or is it C, that they wag their tails 2.5 times faster than wolves? You chose B. I always give guests a chance to change their answer if they've reconsidered during the break. What do you think?
I'm going to stick with my answer, but I know it doesn't count, but just for the record, I want to say C was a close second.
C, also plausible. The correct answer is, this comes from the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company.
Okay.
If you believe
I
that.
love the BBC.
Thank you. Researchers have found that dogs have evolved muscles around their eyes which allow them to make expressions that particularly appeal to humans. A small facial muscle allows dog eyes to mimic infant-like expression, which prompts a nurturing response. This allows dogs to create what researchers call expressive eyebrows, which any dog owner or lover will know what we're talking about, and create the illusion of human-like communication. I think you literally talked about this at the top of the show. So
yeah, no, that I totally knew that.
You knew it in your heart.
I knew it
in your heart. All right. Well, some new toys are coming your way for Simon.
Please don't.
Don't. You're like, I have too much.
Just send him to a shelter
and not enough. Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
That is the correct answer. So speaking of shelters, this gets at my this other very fascinating marketing thing that you've unpacked with your work is like, many businesses and especially businesses that are not that shelters are businesses, but like nonprofits and a lot of entities are bad at social media.
They're
bad at marketing, right? And but also it's like, you have cute dogs. just show cute dogs, and then they get adopted. So you have become this bridge by telling the stories of cute dogs, and now you have a huge audience, and there are literally thousands of people who are like, I want that dog.
Mm-hmm.
So like, can you have you done, or are you interested in doing like consulting with shelters of like, I can get these dogs adopted like 10 times faster than you can. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So I, for about 2 years, I worked with Adopt a Pet to do exactly that. So,
Okay, you mentioned, yeah.
I worked with so many shelters across the country and just made videos of adoptable pets like cats and dogs. And there were so many dogs that, I would get these emails of people being like, oh my God, this dog has been available for 3 years. And then somebody saw your video and came and adopted this dog.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's like, all it takes is showing a dog's personality. The best example of this was, one of my fosters was a French bulldog named King, and he was incontinent and paralyzed. And most people would take one look at this dog and be like, no way, like too much work. He was adorable and he was so sweet, but like, that's crazy. Like, no.
Is this the dog that was missing hind legs, or the dog where the legs didn't work or something?
He had hind legs, but they didn't work.
Yes.
So he wore a wheelchair, and then in the house he would wear a diaper and a drag bag. And my friend's favorite story is the time he had explosive diarrhea in the drag bag, and I just had to like literally, like, I had a bag full of like liquid poop, and I just had to, it was just like the worst thing ever, got all over my apartment. But anyway,
you're not helping. You're not selling.
Well, he's adopted. He's happy he's adopted.
Okay.
So I started showing videos of him, and I literally like would set up my camera and film me changing his diaper every day. But to show people how easy it was. I'm like, it's so easy. Like, people think it's going to be this whole thing. He would sit still. All you have to do is like, it's almost easier to have a dog who wears a diaper because you don't have to like take them out in the freezing cold. It's for a lazy person. Yeah. Like, amazing. You don't have to like take them for walks. Like, all you have to do is change his diaper.
It's so funny. You don't have kids yet or necessarily, but like, when kids poop in the diaper, you clean it up and you go. But the act of and when kids go on the potty, it's awesome. But the transition between those two sucks.
Exactly.
So this is resonating here.
Yes. And he was just so easy to care for. And I made this video saying, if you had told me that an incontinent, paralyzed dog would be one of my easiest fosters, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are.
Amazing.
He was like so easy. And, he had been available for adoption for months. And within 2 weeks of me having him, he was adopted. Okay. And all I had to do was show him to the world. And that is what a lot of these dogs need. They just need somebody to show them to the world because they're so amazing and they have these amazing personalities. But somebody's going to see a blurry photo of a dog in a shelter and be like, what? It does not, why? I don't know this dog. I don't know anything about him. I don't know any of their weird quirks. I don't, it's like, it's not enough to just see a photo, especially a bad photo.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, I think
you can't help every shelter, but can you create some sort of template or class or consultant, something that can help these shelters help themselves? Is that a thing?
I think it is a thing, and I have not done that. It's a great idea, honestly. I know people who have done that before, who have gone into shelters and kind of tried to help them. And I've done it with like my local shelters, but that's a great idea. And I think shelters would really benefit from it because it is much easier than you think. Just being like what you said at the beginning of this podcast, like, hey, you're a little backlit. Try to do this, try to do that, like get a video. And it's like simple things that you and I would probably think of, but like, they're like, oh, I took this video of this dog, but it's just like the dog walking and it's a video of their butt. And I'm like, get a video of the face, maybe. But it's like things like that people, it's like, and I can't fault them because if I go into any other profession, as I said earlier, I have no transferable skills and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I'm like, I don't blame these people for not knowing what to do, but I think it is much simpler than they think.
Everyone has the world's most sophisticated camera in their pocket.
Exactly.
But we still pointed at the butt instead of the face.
Yeah. It's like simple things of being like, just make sure the light is in front of you. Make sure it's on the dog's face. That's literally like, that's it.
I mean, and I agree with everything you're saying, but also you're underselling your skills as a storyteller, because it's not just, reason these dogs are getting adopted is because you are meeting them and learning their personalities, as you said. It's not just like, are they cute? Check.
Sure.
That's not enough necessarily. So when you foster and or highlight a shelter dog and 700 people are like, I want him. Is it a lottery? Is it a vetting process? How does that all go down?
So I primarily foster through Muddy Paws Rescue. I think they are just, I fostered with so many organizations and they are, to me, just the best of the best. I just love them so much. Mm-hmm. They do open adoptions, which I think is amazing, which is essentially you register to become an approved adopter. And then once you're an approved adopter, it's first come, first serve. So whoever applies first to the dog. This really, a lot of rescues are guilty of this because, and it's not, again, it's, I hesitate to criticize rescues, but a big problem in rescue is that, people will apply to adopt a dog and the organization will choose the best adopter that they think are the best fit for the family, which sounds good, right? That sounds of course you want the best fit for the family. Yeah. What actually ends up happening is it's a white couple who lives in suburbia who has a fenced in yard.
Right.
And nobody else gets a dog.
Yeah.
Open adoption means that if you are the first person who is already an approved adopter to apply for this dog, you get the dog. Obviously, there are certain situations where if a dog is terrified of the city, they won't give the dog to a person in the city. Like, there are limitations and they try to make the best fit, but it's much more inclusive. It's much less judgmental. The rescue space can be extremely judgmental of like who deserves a dog. And like, there's so many places that don't apply or don't adopt their dogs out to people who don't have a yard, which is crazy.
Right. Interesting.
I didn't have a yard for 5 years of my life. And so it's things like that. So I don't have any say in who gets the dog. It is first come, first serve for Muddy Paws Rescue. And I think that is the best way to do it.
You are, when you feature a dog, you are linking to some sort of form or website where that process is facilitated by them.
Yes.
You're like, hey, I'm just here to
which is honestly much better for me because I'm like, I don't want to have to make that decision. Then people are like, why did you choose that person?
Oh God,
like,
no, you'd be Okay, well, this makes me think of something else I didn't have written down here, which is like, obviously your account is beloved, but like, you must get haters and shit talkers who are like, you shouldn't do that. This is not good.
I will say that as far as the internet goes, my corner of the internet is very kind and nice to me. Of course, I get snarky comments, like, especially with dogs, everybody has an opinion. Everybody thinks that they know the best thing to do. Sometimes I'll post like I posted this like a joking video that was like, you should leave your husband if he doesn't let you foster dogs. But it was like this sound that was going viral. And it was like, leave your husband.
You posted the meme. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was just someone like yelling at you.
No, okay. I posted this meme and it was like, your husband won't let you foster dogs. Like, leave your husband. It was like this joking, like trending sound.
Yes.
It got to the wrong corner of the internet. Some men freaked out and they're like, oh, so you don't respect your partner? Like, they like found Jacob's name. They're like, poor Jacob. Like, he's going to be like a prisoner for the rest of it. I'm like, oh my God. It's like things like that where I'm just like rolling my eyes. But in the grand scheme of things, I really don't, especially compared to other people I know. I really am lucky, whatever the word you want to say is. I have a great community and, but yes, of course, it's the internet, so snark exists.
It just reminds me, which I've talked to other short form creators where it's like these platforms are so algorithmic and they're so like next thing, okay, what is this, they're so context free that you posting a this is someone else that I interviewed was like, if someone followed her and knew her work, they would know that this was a joke or a
Yes,
parody.
exactly.
But seeing it pop into your feed when they don't know you, it's like, why do you think that? It's like, and it's not. I'm blaming those people suck, but also I'm blaming the algorithmic nature of the platform for some of that context stripping.
Yes, yeah, I've had that too. Where I think it was I spoke at City Hall to try to get our local animal shelter more funding, and I spoke about I'm very against the term kill shelter versus no kill shelter. That's a whole nother topic, but I just think it's like extremely nuanced, and I think our municipal shelters get labeled as kill shelters, but they're the shelters that are serving our cities, and they're not killing for fun. It's they don't have resources. It's like a
right
systematic issue.
Meaning they're doing good work, and if you live in an area with a kill shelter, you should adopt from there.
And a lot of people. So I prefer the term open intake shelter. So a kill shelter is an open intake municipal shelter. They cannot turn animals away. And shelters that label themselves as no kill get to pick and choose what animals come into their rescue. So there's a big difference, and it's branding, right? So a no kill shelter is like, we're no kill. We don't kill any animals. It's like, okay, well, you take in the 3 Malteses that are like super friendly and sweet, and like, there's this dog that is reactive, or it's I just don't think it's fair. So I made this I spoke at City Hall about this, and that video kind of blew up, and so many people are like, you support you support kill shelters, you support the killing of animals, like blah blah blah. And I'm like, those comments don't even bother me, because I'm like, if you took 2 seconds to look at my page, you would see like that is absolutely not the case.
But nobody takes 2 seconds.
No.
Everything is reactionary.
Yes.
And this is like, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is like 1984 level doublespeak of like the nuance of what this phrase actually means the opposite of the thing you think it means.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is educate yourself for 10 seconds and people simply won't do it.
Yeah. And, if I support the ACC, the New York City shelter, people will message me, well, is it a kill shelter? I'm like,
right.
What is any I'm like, every shelter, by the way, this is another thing people don't know. Every shelter has to euthanize animals. Saying you're no kill means it's below a certain percentage.
Okay.
But they still do it. You have to. It's not, some dogs
TIL.
get too sick. Some dogs have behavioral issues. Some dogs and that's just the unfortunate reality. But it's all branding. It's all marketing. It doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't I tell people, go support your local kill shelter. If that's what you want to call it, go support your local kill shelter, because they are the ones who need your money, and they're the ones who need your support. And the fancy, swanky shelter down the street from you probably doesn't.
It reminds me of greenwashing of like food, of like organic and no GMO. It's like, this stuff is fucking unregulated and meaningless, and just eat healthy food. That's another topic. This was a question I had for you, and then I'll hopefully let you go and get back to your pups. You alluded to this. There must be some animals, some dogs that simply can't be adopted, or they're too, I don't know, abused or neglected. Like, and it sounds like it's rare, but like, what? I mean, I know the answer. What happens? But like, have you encountered that?
Yeah, I have. Not any of my fosters, but I personally, and this is a little controversial, but I think people already know how I feel about this. I think it's more humane to euthanize a dog that cannot be rehabilitated than have them sitting in a shelter for 5 years going insane. Yes. Like I said, shelters are super stressful. It's just not kind to the dog. And back to the kill or no kill thing, a lot of no kill shelters have dogs that sit in shelters for ever and don't euthanize because they're no kill. And
Right.
is that humane? Who's to say? I don't know.
Right.
I'm not the morality police here, but I believe that if a dog is so distressed and so however they got that way, whether it's abuse or neglect, and they are so unhappy in their day-to-day life, and you have tried everything that you could possibly do, I think that the most humane thing that you can do is euthanasia.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot. And not a lot. Most dogs are able to be rehabilitated. Most dogs, in fact, most dogs who come into the shelter are totally normal and have no issues and are super friendly and they're potty trained. And most dogs are like that. Some dogs need a little bit more help, and then a very small percentage can't be helped. And that's just life, and it's sad, but it's not a reason to give up the fight.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My two takeaways here are: one, I agree with everything you just said, and number two, there's going to be so much controversy around this episode. It's going to be great for hashtag engagement. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's funny. Like, I talk about this all the time, and these are like buzzwords that I think a lot of, like you said, like, oh, engagement. But once I explain it, people are like, oh, duh.
Yeah.
So there really is not a lot of, on the videos that I post, there's not a lot of controversy. As soon as I explain it, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. People just don't know.
To storytelling and communication and education.
People don't know that kill shelters are open intake shelters. They don't know that. Yeah.
You just educated me.
I've
never heard of this.
Because it's just the marketing of these other organizations. It's not anybody's fault for not knowing that.
Yep. Final question, thought thing here is, do you observe, I don't know how you would know this, but has there been a statistical increase in successful fostering and adoptions since you've been doing this work? Meaning, is the visibility and the education that you and maybe other content creators have been doing over the last couple years, has that moved the needle where shelters are a little less crowded, or dogs that weren't adoptable now are adoptable? You know what I mean?
I don't know an exact statistic. I just know the feedback that I get, and I get probably 10 to 15 people a day telling me that I started fostering because of you. And that is the best thing ever. Like, that is the coolest feedback that I could get. I do think shelters are still super crowded. Like, I don't want to take away from that. It's still a really big issue.
Wait, you haven't solved it?
Yeah, I'm working on it. But I've seen more, like Alex Earl, huge influencer. I don't know if you know who she is. She's
I'm not familiar with her.
She's like, beautiful blonde influencer. And
well, what does she do? She's blonde on the internet.
She's blonde on the internet, and she's dating like a football player. I don't know. She has like millions of followers.
Are you talking about Taylor Swift? Because that's
yeah, basically.
Okay.
She just did a whole series of going to a shelter and like. So I'm seeing like whether she's just doing that to be like, I'm a good person. I don't really care, because it's having an impact on people. Yes. And it is like, every time I see an influencer who adopts, I'm like, fuck yeah, because there's so many influencers who are just getting a doodle, or who are just getting like a purebred, which again, that's a whole nother topic, which I'm not against. I'm not morally against purebred dogs. Just want to put that out there. Okay. But I just think it's so cool. I think it's becoming more mainstream. I think the more celebrities, the more influencers who just like are like, hey, I'm going to go volunteer at the shelter for the day. Like, that makes it cool. And I am super grateful for the people who are doing that. And I hope that I am making an impact in that way. I think I am. And I would love it if more people fostered because of me.
That's beautiful. They absolutely are. Yeah, I think it'll be a slow road, but it's a hearts and minds thing. It is changing the culture and understanding of a topic, and you are doing that work. that's a beautiful place to end. But we haven't covered the book, and also I was curious, like, how do you make your living these days? Is it brand partnerships? It's not merch, but is it like, where does it, if you made a pie chart, no numbers obviously, but if you made a pie chart, like where does the income come from?
So I mostly brand partnerships. That is where most of my income comes from. Actually, I haven't like said this online, but just before
this an exclusive?
This is an exclusive.
Exclusive. Woo! Wait, I gotta get the DJ horn in there.
Just before Thanksgiving, I was still freelancing, but I was working full-time hours at Kinship Adopt-A-Pet. It's the same brand.
Okay.
And I quit to like focus. This is like the first time that I am just working for myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of scary and exciting. But as you mentioned, I'm writing a book. So I want most of my time and attention to just go to that and creating my own content. And, you know, for so long, I have built up other brands, and I just want to focus on building my own for a little bit and just see where it goes. And I keep telling myself, like, if it goes terribly, I can get another job. It'll be fine. But yeah, so that's like what I'm doing. And then obviously, when you write a book, you get an advance. So that's nice.
Yes.
I make money from TikTok Creator Fund. But that's really it.
Great.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's my source of income used to be so complicated. It used to be like I was doing this and that, and then I would be doing this. And it was like
chasing
I was
down clients and billing everyone.
A million things. And now it's just so simple. It's like
good.
Weird.
Yeah. That's great. And like you said earlier, we touched on it. The book is a memoir, but also like it's about the last 10 years of this journey that we talked a lot about here, right? Is there any
if you listen
other
to this
component?
podcast episode, you don't have to read the book. Just kidding.
Yes. Woo! We did it. SimonSits at SimonSits it's the same account on Instagram and TikTok, right?
Yep.
Anywhere else we should direct people if they want to follow your work or keep up with the book progress or anything like that? Website?
Those are the main two. I also have a Substack, which is linked on both of my accounts. But yeah, that's mostly it. Just Instagram and TikTok. And I share my writing there too. So if you're interested in the book, you'll see that process of writing the book, but also like excerpts of my writing and all that good stuff.
Beautiful. Isabel Klee, thank you so much for being my guest, and keep doing this amazing work. We need it.
Thank you for having me.
As I've said on the pod a few times before, we are not a dog or pet household. We do not need other creatures pooping on the floor in our home because we've got enough of that already. But I will say that while adoption is not in the cards, Isabel, her education and what she has shown her audience and of course shown me over the course of this interview and her work is that fostering is not as difficult as it seems. And maybe is there a world where my son, who will stop people on the street to pet their dogs, like he is obsessed with dogs, and yet will never own one. Is there a world where we could temporarily have a dog in the house? And I think we could make that happen. However, it's the saying goodbye part, which may or may not work for the kids. It's tricky. It's tricky, but Isabel has shown me a little crack in the door, a little light that might, lead to a conversation or two about that. Interesting. We wish her well on this extraordinary work, and I don't know. Like she said, can we measure the statistics of like, are more people fostering and adopting now than before? Hard to know, but like the fact that all these messages are coming in from people who are saying, I didn't know this was possible and now I love doing it. Like this is what we need. We need this for all the things that we think are hard or that are important to do. So kudos to Isabel and to all the all the creators who advocate for any person or creature, paws or fingers. We need you. We need you more than ever. And thanks to Isabel for being my guest. Hop on over to patreon.com/influencepod to support the show. You can also email the show, follow me on all the things. No more Twitter. That's not. We're not doing that anymore. But Blue Sky's been nice. I think I talked about it on a previous episode. Feels like 2009 Twitter, which is great. Threads just wants me to look at shit that I'm not interested in. So okay, cool, Threads. But Blue Sky is a fun time. So all the links to the websites, the YouTube channel, if you're an audio listener and you want to see the cute pictures of the dogs, you want to see Sky Berkson's work. Interviewed him a couple episodes back, where it's just, lots of visual creators, people who are making, as Isabel was talking about, it's the video storytelling that is so resonant with them, with audiences, that has propelled these creators to prominence. So if you are interested in checking out any of the visual side of this program, it is youtube.com/influencepodcast. Or youtube.com/@influencepodcast. YouTube, get your URL structure together, man. It used to be so easy, and now it's a little bit jankified. For now, thank you so much for listening. Please, I'm begging you to be kind, rewind your podcast after listening, and I'll talk at you in 1 week's time.